My family did not love me, but when organized a party and did not invite them, they accused me of splitting the family and being selfish. Hi everyone, I'm Amanda, 32F, and I'm finally sharing something that's been bothering me for years. It's about my family and the way they've always ignored my birthday. Every year, it's the same story, and honestly, I feel like an outsider in my own family. I've been thinking about it so much lately that I just need to get this out. Growing up, birthdays in our family were a big deal. Or at least they were for my siblings, Joshua, 38M, and Melanie, 35F. Joshua's birthdays were legendary. My parents would throw these extravagant parties, professional photographers capturing every moment, massive custom cakes that looked like something out of a reality show, and decorations straight from a Pinterest board. Melanie's were no different. She'd have themed parties with event planners hired to transform our backyard into some kind of wonderland. One year, they even brought in a live pony for her fairy tale party. I still remember the way she lit up when she saw it, and I remember standing in the corner wishing I could have something like that even once. My birthdays? Well, let's just say they were an afterthought. I'd get a store-bought cake, usually one that looked like it had been grabbed in a hurry. Half the time, my name wasn't even spelled right. Amanda would be Amand or Mandy, and my mom would shrug it off with, "You're not picky, are you?" No decorations, no parties, no fuss. Just a quick, happy birthday at dinner if they remembered it all. One year when I was about 10, I decided to bring it up. It was after Melanie's birthday bash, which had a circus theme. I told my mom I wanted a party too. Something small, maybe just a few friends over and some balloons. She looked at me like I just asked for the moon. "We're too busy, Amanda," she said. "Besides, you're not one to make a big deal out of things, are you?" Another time, when I was 16, I tried again. Melanie had just turned 19, and my parents had rented out an entire restaurant for her. I asked if we could do something similar for me, and my dad said, "Amanda, you know money's tight right now. Maybe next year." The next year came and went, and of course, nothing happened. It wasn't just the lack of parties. It was the way my feelings were dismissed every time I tried to talk about it. I'd hear things like, "You're too sensitive," or "You're making a big deal out of nothing." It made me feel like I was overreacting, but deep down, I knew I wasn't. It wasn't just about the parties. It was about the blatant favoritism and the way I felt like I didn't matter. Fast forward to adulthood, and not much has changed. Joshua and Melanie still get the royal treatment. Joshua's wife, Olivia, once posted about the surprise party my parents threw for him when he turned 35. They rented out a country club, had a 5-tier cake, and even hired a live band. Melanie's birthdays are just as grand. She turned 30 a few years ago, and they flew her to Paris for a week. Meanwhile, for my 30th, I got a text from my mom. "Happy birthday, Mandy. Hope it's a good one." No call, no gift, nothing. I cried myself to sleep that night. I've tried to talk to them about it as an adult, but the excuses haven't changed. "You're not into big celebrations," they say, or "We're just so busy these days." It's infuriating because I know they're not too busy or too broke for Joshua and Melanie. It feels personal, like they've decided I'm not worth the effort. What hurts the most is that they don't even seem to realize how much this affects me. They act like I should just be grateful for whatever scraps of attention they throw my way. And honestly, I've started to believe them. I tell myself I don't need a big celebration, that I'm too old to care about birthdays. But deep down, I do care. I just want to feel like I matter to them. I'm not sure what to do anymore. I've tried talking to them. I've tried ignoring it, and nothing changes. Part of me wants to cut them off completely, but another part of me holds on to the hope that maybe someday they'll see how much they've hurt me and make things right. But the older I get, the less I believe that will ever happen. Hi again. I didn't think I'd be writing here so soon, but something happened a few weeks ago, and I need to get it off my chest. This year was my 30th birthday, and I was hopeful, foolishly hopeful as it turned out. I'd been reminding my family about it for months. Subtle hints, direct reminders, even outright suggestions about what we could do to celebrate. I wanted something simple, a dinner with everyone, maybe even just a cake we could share at home. But as the day got closer, I started to feel that familiar sinking feeling. No one mentioned any plans. On the morning of my birthday, I woke up to silence. No text messages, no phone calls. I sat in my kitchen with a cup of coffee, scrolling through social media, and saw nothing from my family. Around lunchtime, I decided to send a group text to my parents, Joshua and Melanie. "Hey, just wanted to remind you guys it's my 30th today." The responses came hours later, and they felt like daggers. My mom replied, "Oh, happy birthday, Mandy. Hope you have a wonderful day." My dad just liked her message. Joshua didn't respond at all. Melanie, bless her, sent me a message about being 30 and flirty and thriving. No plans, no offers to meet up, nothing. I spent the day alone. I tried to cheer myself up. I bought myself some flowers and a small cake from a local bakery. It was a nice cake, sure, but it wasn't the same as having people to share it with. I lit a candle, made a wish, and cried myself to sleep. 2 weeks later, the final blow landed. Joshua turned 40, and my parents threw him the kind of party you'd see in a movie. I only found out because my cousin Anna posted about it on Instagram. The theme was Old Hollywood, and they'd rented out this gorgeous venue with crystal chandeliers and red velvet drapes. There was a live jazz band, a 3-tier cake that probably cost more than my rent, and over 100 guests. Everyone was dressed to the nines, sipping champagne and posing for the professional photographer they'd hired. I wasn't invited. At first, I thought it was a mistake. Maybe my invitation got lost in the mail, or they forgot to add me to the group chat. But when I texted my mom to ask about it, she responded, "Oh, sweetheart, we didn't think you'd want to make the trip for something so fancy. You've always said you don't like big parties." I was livid. I didn't even bother responding. Instead, I went through every post from the party, torturing myself with the pictures. There was Joshua, grinning ear to ear as he blew out his candles. Melanie was there, of course, in a glittering gold dress, holding a glass of champagne. My parents were beaming in every shot, and there I was, sitting alone in my apartment, staring at it all through a screen. That night, I made a decision. I was done waiting for my family to care. If they couldn't bother to celebrate me, then I'd celebrate myself. And not just any celebration. I was going to throw the biggest, most extravagant party of my life. It would be my dream birthday, and I wouldn't need them to make it happen. I started planning immediately. I knew it would be expensive, but I didn't care. I'd been saving for years and decided it was time to splurge. First, I booked a venue, a stunning rooftop garden with panoramic views of the city. It was the kind of place I'd always dreamed of, with fairy lights strung between trees and a dance floor under the stars. Next, I hired an event planner named Rachel. She was incredible, energetic, creative, and completely on board with my vision. Together, we chose a theme. A night in Wonderland. It was whimsical and magical, just what I needed to remind myself that life could be beautiful. Rachel found the perfect decor: oversized teacups and mushrooms, glowing lanterns, and even a faux tree that would light up as the night went on. The guest list was tricky. I decided not to invite my family. At first, it felt petty, but the more I thought about it, the more I realized I deserved a night without their dismissive comments and indifference. Instead, I invited my closest friends, coworkers, and a few old classmates I'd reconnected with on social media. To my surprise, almost everyone RSVP'd yes. As the date approached, I felt a mix of excitement and anxiety. Part of me worried that no one would show up, that I'd walk into an empty venue and be humiliated. But when the day finally arrived, all my doubts melted away. The party was perfect. Guests started arriving at sunset, dressed in their Wonderland-inspired outfits. Some wore top hats and pocket watches, others came as queens and knights. The band was incredible, playing a mix of live jazz and upbeat modern hits. The caterers served the most delicious food I'd ever tasted. Miniature desserts shaped like playing cards and cocktails that changed colors as you drank them. When the clock struck 9, Rachel surprised me with the highlight of the night: a fireworks display. I stood on the rooftop, surrounded by my friends, watching the sky light up in shades of gold and purple. For the first time in years, I felt truly celebrated. People hugged me, toasted to me, and told me how much they admired my resilience and independence. Toward the end of the night, as the party started winding down, I checked my phone. I had a missed call from my mom and a text from Melanie. "Saw your party pics on Anna's story. Looks like you had fun." I didn't respond. I didn't need to. That night, as I lay in bed, my heart felt full. For so long, I'd been waiting for my family to show me that I mattered. But now, I realized I didn't need their validation. I could create my own happiness, my own joy. And I had. After the success of my night in Wonderland party, I felt unstoppable. For the first time in years, I'd celebrated myself, and it had been perfect. But I wasn't done. I decided I wanted something even more grandiose, something that screamed elegance and mystery. I was going to throw a masquerade ball, a lavish, glamorous evening to show my closest friends how much I appreciated their support over the years. The idea hit me while I was scrolling through Pinterest late one night. I saw photos of masquerade parties with glittering masks, decadent decor, and flowing champagne. I could already picture it: the soft glow of chandeliers, the swish of floor-length gowns, the energy of a night where everyone could escape their reality, even for just a few hours. I wanted that magic for myself and my friends. I started planning immediately. The first step was finding a venue. After weeks of research, I booked a stunning downtown hall. It was everything I wanted: high ceilings, ornate gold detailing, and massive windows overlooking the city. The rental fee was steep, $5,000, but I knew it would be worth it. I wanted the night to be unforgettable. Next, I dove into the details. I decided on a black and gold theme, with accents of deep red to give it a dramatic flair. I hired a decorator, a woman named Danielle, who was a master at transforming spaces. She suggested velvet drapes, candelabras, and a grand entrance lined with red roses. I loved it all. We planned for a dance floor in the center of the room, with a live string quartet to start the evening and a DJ to take over later. The invitations were another project. I wanted them to feel special, something my guests would be excited to receive. I worked with a calligrapher to design wax-stamped invitations on thick, textured paper. Each one was personalized with the recipient's name and included a small black feather attached to the envelope. They were beautiful, and when I saw the final product, I felt a swell of pride. These weren't just invitations, they were keepsakes. For the cake, I went all out. I ordered a 3-tiered masterpiece from a local bakery known for their show-stopping designs. The bottom tier was black with gold filigree, the middle was solid gold with a quilted texture, and the top was a deep red adorned with edible roses. It was almost too beautiful to eat, almost. The guest list was small but meaningful. I invited the people who had always been there for me, my coworkers, my college friends, and even a few neighbors who had become like family over the years. I wanted this night to be about the people who truly cared about me, the ones who had supported me through thick and thin. My family, of course, was not invited. After years of being ignored and overlooked, I wasn't going to let them ruin this night. Keeping the preparations a secret was tricky. My mom had a habit of calling me unannounced, and Melanie was always snooping on social media. I stopped posting anything remotely related to the party and avoided taking calls while I was working on the details. It was exhausting but necessary. I didn't want to give them even the slightest hint of what I was planning. As the date approached, the excitement and the stress built. There were so many moving parts. Finalizing the menu, choosing the right wine, coordinating with the photographer. I had a moment of panic when the decorator called to say the custom drapes wouldn't arrive on time. I spent an entire afternoon on the phone with different suppliers until I found a replacement. It wasn't exactly what I'd envisioned, but it was close enough. On the day of the ball, I arrived at the venue early to oversee the setup. Walking into that hall was like stepping into a dream. The room was bathed in a warm golden glow, with candles flickering on every table. The masks I'd provided for guests were laid out in neat rows, each one unique and stunning. The string quartet was warming up, filling the space with soft, melodic notes. As guests started to arrive, I felt a mix of nerves and excitement. Everyone looked incredible, dressed in elegant gowns and sharp suits, their faces hidden behind ornate masks. The air buzzed with laughter and conversation as people mingled, sipped champagne, and admired the decor. Midway through the evening, I took a moment to stand back and soak it all in. My friends were dancing, laughing, and genuinely enjoying themselves. The photographer was snapping away, capturing the magic of the night. It was everything I'd hoped for and more. Then came the speeches. My friend Mia, who's been with me through some of my darkest times, took the microphone and gave the most heartfelt toast. She talked about resilience, about choosing joy, and about how proud she was of me for creating this beautiful night. By the end, I was in tears, but they were happy tears. For once, I felt seen and valued. As the night wore on, the string quartet gave way to the DJ, and the dance floor came alive. People let loose, laughing and spinning under the glittering lights. I joined in, feeling lighter than I had in years. For the first time, I wasn't thinking about my family or their absence. I was fully present, surrounded by love and positivity. Toward the end of the night, Danielle pulled me aside. "You've created something really special here," she said. "This is a night people will talk about for years." Her words stayed with me as the evening wound down, and guests began to trickle out. Everyone thanked me as they left, telling me how much they'd enjoyed the night and how beautiful everything was. When I finally got home, exhausted but elated, I found a text from my mom. "Saw some photos of your party online. Looks like you went all out. Must have cost a fortune. Hope you're not overextending yourself." I didn't respond. I didn't need to. That night, as I lay in bed, I felt a deep sense of peace. I'd thrown the party of my dreams, and it had been everything I wanted it to be. I didn't need my family to validate me or make me feel important. I'd done that for myself, and it was the most liberating feeling in the world. I didn't plan on my family finding out about the masquerade ball. In fact, I had gone to great lengths to keep them in the dark. My social media had been unusually quiet for weeks, and I'd avoided any conversations that might give away what I was working on. But as perfect as the night had been, there was one slip-up I hadn't accounted for. A single photo that would unravel everything. The day after the party, I woke up feeling content. My phone was buzzing with messages from friends who had attended, thanking me for an incredible night. The compliments poured in, and I couldn't help but smile as I read them. But then I noticed a notification that stopped me in my tracks. You were tagged in a photo by Mia. My heart sank. I opened the notification to see a picture of the ball, a candid shot of me laughing with a group of friends, the glittering hall in the background. Mia had captioned it, "The most magical night. All thanks to Amanda. You outdid yourself, girl." It was a beautiful photo, but my stomach churned as I realized the implications. My family followed Mia on social media. If they hadn't seen the photo yet, it was only a matter of time. Sure enough, it didn't take long. By noon, I had a missed call from Joshua, then another, then one from my mom. I ignored them all, dreading what I knew was coming. My phone kept buzzing with texts. "Joshua, call me. Now." "Mom, we need to talk, Amanda." Joshua again. "What the hell, Mandy?" I spent the day trying to ignore the storm brewing on my phone, but by evening, I couldn't avoid it any longer. Joshua called again, and this time, I picked up. "What's going on?" I said, trying to sound casual, though my voice was shaky. "What's going on?" he repeated, his tone dripping with anger. "I think that's my question for you. What the hell was that party? And why weren't we invited?" I sighed. "It was a party I threw for my friends. That's all. Just for your friends? What about your family? Or do we not count anymore?" His voice was rising now, and I could feel the familiar frustration building in my chest. "Joshua, let's not do this right now. It was my party, and I didn't want to invite you. End of story." "Not end of story," he snapped. "Mom and Dad are furious. They think you're trying to split the family. And honestly, I don't blame them." At that point, I'd had enough. Split the family? I shot back. "Don't you think the family's been split for years? Or did you think I didn't notice when my birthdays were ignored, while yours were celebrated like you were royalty? This party wasn't about you. It wasn't about Mom or Dad. It was about me, and for once, I wasn't going to let anyone ruin it." Joshua was silent for a moment, and I thought maybe I'd gotten through to him. But then he said, "You're unbelievable. You're making this all about you. Like you're the victim here. You have no idea what Mom and Dad have done for us." I hung up. I couldn't take it anymore. But the worst was yet to come. The next morning, my parents showed up at my apartment unannounced. When I opened the door, I was met with my mom's furious face and my dad standing stiffly behind her, his arms crossed. "Amanda," my mom said sharply, brushing past me into the living room. "We need to talk." "Good morning to you too," I said sarcastically, closing the door behind them. "What's this about?" My mom turned to me, her eyes blazing. "Don't play dumb. You know exactly what this is about. That party you threw, the one you didn't bother to invite your family to. Do you have any idea how hurtful that was?" "Hurtful?" I laughed bitterly. "You're really going to talk to me about being hurtful? How about all the years you ignored my birthday while throwing Joshua and Melanie these over-the-top parties? Or the way you've dismissed me every time I've tried to talk about how that made me feel? This wasn't about hurting you. It was about finally doing something for myself." "You're twisting things," my dad cut in, his voice cold. "We've always done our best for you, Amanda. Maybe it wasn't as flashy as what your siblings got, but we've always cared. You just don't appreciate it." "Don't appreciate it?" I said, my voice shaking. "How am I supposed to appreciate being treated like an afterthought? Like I don't matter? This is a blow below the belt," my mom said, her voice trembling with anger. "You know how much we've sacrificed for this family, and this is how you repay us? By excluding us and airing your grievances to your friends instead of coming to us directly? I've tried coming to you." I shot back. "But every time I do, you dismiss me or make excuses. I'm done trying to make you understand." My dad shook his head, his face grim. "You're ungrateful, Amanda. After everything we've done for you, this is how you treat us? Splitting the family, causing all this drama. It's selfish." Something in me snapped. "Selfish? You're calling me selfish? After all these years of being ignored, I finally do something for myself, and you can't handle it?" Maybe it's time you took a good look at yourselves instead of blaming me for everything. My mom looked like she was about to cry, but I didn't care. I was done tiptoeing around their feelings while mine were constantly dismissed. They left soon after, my dad muttering something about me needing to grow up. I stood in the doorway as they walked to their car, a strange mix of anger and relief washing over me. For the first time in years, I felt like I'd finally stood up for myself. But at the same time, I knew this wasn't over. My family wasn't going to let this go easily. Later that evening, I got another call from Joshua. I let it go to voicemail, but his message was clear. You've crossed a line, Amanda. I don't know how we're supposed to move past this. I didn't respond. I needed time to process everything, to figure out what my next step would be. All I knew was that I wasn't going to apologize. Not this time. The night of the masquerade ball finally arrived, and it was everything I had dreamed it would be. The venue, an elegant downtown hall with soaring ceilings and gilded decor, had been transformed into a world of mystery and opulence. Flickering candelabras lined the walls, and golden chandeliers cast a warm, enchanting glow across the room. Guests dressed in elaborate costumes and masks mingled, their laughter and excitement filling the air. I stood near the entrance, greeting each guest as they arrived. Everyone had embraced the dress code. There were feathered masks, sparkling gowns, and even a few vintage military uniforms. It felt like I'd stepped into another era. The caterers I'd hired circulated with trays of gourmet hors d'oeuvres, smoked salmon canapes, truffle-stuffed mushrooms, and delicate pastries that melted in your mouth. A string quartet played softly in the background, adding to the atmosphere of sophistication. For the first time in a long time, I felt like I was in control of my life. I'd put so much effort into planning this evening, and seeing it come together was deeply satisfying. I could see my friends having the time of their lives, posing for photos and sipping champagne from crystal flutes. It was perfect, until my family showed up. I was talking to Mia near the bar when one of the security guards approached me. He was a tall, imposing man named Carl, who I'd hired specifically to handle any uninvited guests or potential disruptions. I'd even briefed him on the possibility that my family might try to crash the party. Ms. Amanda, he said in a low voice, we've got a situation at the entrance. My stomach dropped. What kind of situation? It's your family. They're demanding to be let in, but they're not on the list. For a moment, I was stunned. I had been so careful to keep this night private, so meticulous in my planning. But of course, they had found out. Probably through social media again. Taking a deep breath, I excused myself from Mia and followed Carl to the entrance. When I got there, I saw them immediately. My mom, Suzanne, was dressed in what she probably thought was appropriate for the occasion. A floor-length black dress with rhinestones. My dad, Gregory, was in a suit that looked like it had seen better days. And there was Joshua, towering over the security guards, gesturing angrily as he argued with them. Let us through. My mom was shouting. This is our daughter's party, and we have every right to be here. The guards, calm and professional, stood their ground. I'm sorry, ma'am, but this is a private event. If you're not on the guest list, we can't let you in. I'm her mother. Suzanne snapped, her voice rising. Do you know what kind of disgrace this is? Amanda has embarrassed this family enough already. Let us in. I stepped forward then, and their eyes immediately turned to me. What are you doing here? I asked, my voice colder than I intended. My dad was the first to respond. What are we doing here? What kind of question is that? We're your family, Amanda. You don't get to throw a party like this and not invite us. Yes, I do, I said firmly. This is my event, and I didn't invite you for a reason. You need to leave. My mom's face turned red with anger. Leave? You're telling your own mother to leave? Do you have any idea how humiliating this is for us? People are talking about this party, Amanda. They're asking why we weren't invited. Do you know what that makes us look like? I don't care what it makes you look like, I shot back. This party isn't about you. It's about me, and I wanted to celebrate with the people who actually care about me, not the ones who have ignored me my entire life. Joshua stepped forward then, his face twisted with fury. This is low, Mandy. Even for you. You're acting like a spoiled brat. Mom and Dad have done everything for you, and this is how you repay them. I laughed bitterly. Everything for me? Like what? Ignoring my birthdays? Treating me like I didn't matter while you and Melanie got everything handed to you on a silver platter? Spare me, Joshua. The tension was palpable. Guests inside the hall were starting to notice the commotion, peeking through the doors and whispering among themselves. I felt a pang of embarrassment, but refused to let it show. You've disgraced this family, my mom said, her voice shaking. This is a slap in the face to everything we've done for you. No, I said, my voice steady. What's disgraceful is the way you've treated me my whole life. This party is mine, and you're not welcome here. Now, if you don't leave, I'll have the guards escort you out. My dad stepped forward then, trying to assert his authority. I'm your father, Amanda. I have every right to be here. You can't just shut us out like this. Watch me, I said. I turned to Carl. Make sure they leave. I don't want them disrupting my guests. Carl nodded and stepped between us, motioning for the other guards to do the same. You heard her, he said firmly. This is private property. If you don't leave now, we'll have to remove you. You'll regret this, Amanda. My mom hissed as they were escorted out. You've made your choice, and it's the wrong one. I watched them go, my chest tight with a mix of anger and sadness. Part of me wanted to cry, but I wouldn't give them that satisfaction. Instead, I took a deep breath, adjusted my mask, and walked back into the hall. My friends were there, waiting for me, ready to lift my spirits. This night wasn't about my family. It was about reclaiming my happiness, and I wasn't going to let them ruin it. The days after the masquerade ball were a whirlwind. I woke up the morning after the party to a mix of euphoria and exhaustion. My friends had been effusive in their praise. Texts poured in thanking me for the unforgettable evening, with many calling it one of the best events they'd ever attended. For a moment, I allowed myself to revel in the success of it all. But that peace didn't last long. By the afternoon, my phone started buzzing with messages from my family. The first was from Suzanne, my mother. Her tone was sharp and biting, even in text form. Amanda, your behavior last night was appalling. To exclude your own family from such an event, and then to have us escorted out by guards? Have you lost all respect for the people who raised you? This is beyond hurtful. It's disgraceful. Call me immediately. I didn't respond. I knew exactly how the conversation would go. She'd berate me for my selfishness, dismiss any mention of how they'd treated me over the years, and somehow twist the narrative so I was the villain. I wasn't in the mood for it, so I put my phone on silent and tried to focus on anything else. But it didn't stop there. Over the next few days, the attacks intensified. Suzanne began sending long, accusatory emails, paragraphs upon paragraphs about how I'd disgraced the family name and destroyed any chance of reconciliation. She recounted sacrifices she claimed to have made for me, though I struggled to see how they outweighed the years of neglect. The letters felt less like an attempt at understanding and more like a calculated effort to guilt me into submission. My father, Gregory, was no better. He left several voicemails demanding that I apologize, publicly. You owe this family an explanation, one of his messages said. You owe us an apology. I don't care how you think you've been treated. You don't humiliate your family like that. Make it right, Amanda, or there will be consequences. Consequences? I nearly laughed at the absurdity of it. What consequences could they impose that hadn't already played out over decades of emotional neglect? Still, hearing those words from my father, spoken in that stern, authoritarian tone, made me feel like a child all over again. It was like being scolded for something I didn't do, for feelings I wasn't allowed to have. But the worst was yet to come. Joshua, my older brother, decided to take the fight public. A few days after the party, he posted a lengthy rant on Facebook. It started with, "Family is supposed to come first. It's a shame some people don't understand that." He went on to call me selfish, entitled, and accused me of trying to divide the family. It's sad when someone prioritizes their ego over the people who've always been there for them, he wrote. The post quickly gained traction, with extended family and his friends chiming in. Some expressed sympathy for him and my parents, while others were more neutral, asking what had happened. But what Joshua hadn't anticipated was the response from my friends. They came to my defense immediately, leaving comments that turned the tide of the conversation. My best friend Mia wrote, Amanda's selfishness is taking care of herself after being overlooked and dismissed by her family for years. You don't get to rewrite history, Joshua. Some of us actually know the truth. Another friend, Sophie, added, maybe instead of attacking Amanda publicly, you should take a look at how your family has treated her. There's a reason she threw that party without you, and it's not selfishness. It's survival. More comments poured in, with people sharing their own stories of family neglect and how they learned to set boundaries. Reading their words felt like a warm hug. For the first time, I realized I wasn't alone in this struggle. My friends had seen what I'd endured, and they weren't afraid to call it out. Joshua eventually deleted the post, but not before the damage was done. The family group chat exploded with messages about airing dirty laundry, how embarrassing it was that my friends had chimed in. I stayed silent. Let them stew in their outrage. I was done playing their game, but as much as I tried to ignore it, the constant barrage of attacks took a toll. Suzanne's letters became more desperate, accusing me of being ungrateful and selfish. Gregory's calls grew angrier, and Joshua continued to sulk in his passive-aggressive way. It felt like they were doubling down on their narrative, refusing to see their role in any of this. One night, after yet another scathing email from my mother, I sat down with Mia and poured my heart out. I don't know how much more of this I can take, I admitted. It's like they're determined to make me the bad guy no matter what I do. Mia, ever the voice of reason, looked at me and said, "You don't have to take it, Amanda. You've done nothing wrong. They're upset because you've drawn a boundary, and people like that hate boundaries. But you're allowed to protect your peace." Her words stayed with me. Over the next few weeks, I began to reevaluate my relationship with my family. I realized I couldn't keep living under the weight of their expectations and guilt. I had spent my entire life trying to earn their approval, only to be met with disappointment and neglect. It was time to let go. I started small, ignoring their texts and emails. When they called, I let it go to voicemail. For the first time, I put my own mental health first. It wasn't easy. There were moments when I felt an overwhelming urge to explain myself, to try one last time to make them understand. But I knew it wouldn't make a difference. They didn't want to understand. They wanted control. Instead, I focused on the people who truly valued me. I spent more time with Mia and Sophie, with my coworkers who had become like family, and with new friends I'd made through the party. These were the people who saw me for who I was, who celebrated my successes and stood by me in my struggles. They became my chosen family, and for the first time in my life, I felt free. As weeks turned into months, the attacks from my family began to fade. Maybe they realized I wasn't going to budge, or maybe they just moved on to other things. Either way, I didn't care. I was done trying to win their approval. I had built a life for myself, a life filled with love, support, and joy, and I wasn't going to let anyone take that away. It's been a year since the masquerade ball, and my life has changed in ways I never thought possible. For the first time, I feel at peace. The weight I'd been carrying for so many years, the constant need to prove myself to my family, the endless quest for their approval, is gone. It wasn't easy to let go of that burden, but now that I have, I can't imagine going back. The silence from my family has been both a blessing and a reminder of why I had to set boundaries in the first place. After their initial wave of anger and accusations, they slowly stopped reaching out. I didn't receive any texts or calls from Suzanne on Christmas, no awkward messages from Gregory on New Year's, and certainly no half-hearted invitations from Joshua. At first, the quiet felt strange. I had grown so used to their presence in my life, even if that presence was toxic. But as time went on, I began to appreciate the stillness. It gave me room to breathe, to think, and to focus on myself. For the first time in my life, I've started putting my needs first. It's such a simple thing, but it feels revolutionary. I wake up in the mornings and think about what I want to do, not what's expected of me. I've taken up yoga, something I'd always been curious about but never had the time or energy for. It's become a grounding part of my routine, a way to start the day with intention and calm. I've also joined a local book club, where I've met some incredible women who share my love of reading. They've become fast friends, and our monthly meetings are something I look forward to with genuine excitement. One of the biggest changes, though, has been my approach to celebrations. The masquerade ball showed me how powerful it can be to create moments of joy and connection. So now, I'm always looking for reasons to celebrate. Birthdays, promotions, even small milestones like finishing a tough project at work. I'll find a way to mark the occasion. My friends joke that I'm becoming the party queen, but I wear the title proudly. Recently, I hosted a summer garden party at my apartment complex. It wasn't as grand as the masquerade ball, but it was perfect in its own way. I decorated the courtyard with string lights and wildflowers, hired a local caterer to provide light bites, and set up a DIY cocktail bar where guests could mix their own drinks. People came in casual summer dresses and linen shirts, and the atmosphere was relaxed and happy. We laughed, played games, and danced under the stars. By the end of the night, I felt a deep sense of gratitude for the community I'd built. Of course, there are moments when I think about my family. I'd be lying if I said I didn't sometimes wonder if they regret how they treated me, or if they've ever questioned their role in all of this. But those thoughts don't consume me the way they used to. I no longer need their validation to feel whole. That realization has been one of the most freeing experiences of my life. The truth is, my family will probably never admit they were at fault. Suzanne, with her stubborn pride, will cling to the narrative that I'm the ungrateful one. Gregory will likely continue to see himself as the patriarch whose authority I disrespected. And Joshua will always view me through the lens of his own inflated ego. But I've made peace with that. Their inability to reflect on their behavior is not my responsibility. In the meantime, I've started planning for my 35th birthday. It's still a few years away, but I want it to be spectacular. This time, I'm thinking of a Roaring Twenties theme, a night of glitz, glamour, and vintage charm. I've already started brainstorming ideas with Rachel, the event planner who helped me with the masquerade ball. She's as excited as I am, and we've been tossing around concepts like a live jazz band, flapper-inspired cocktails, and a dance floor that looks like it's straight out of a Gatsby novel. The thought of it fills me with so much joy. It's not just about the party itself. It's about celebrating how far I've come in the life I've built for myself. My friends, as always, have been incredibly supportive. Mia has become something of a sister to me, filling a role I never realized I was missing. She's the first person I call when I have good news, the one I turn to when I need advice or a shoulder to cry on. Sophie, too, has been a constant presence in my life. Her humor and optimism never fail to lift my spirits. Together, they've shown me what real love and friendship look like. There's also Ryan, a coworker I've gotten to know better over the past few months. He's kind, thoughtful, and has a knack for making me laugh even on the most stressful days. We've started spending more time together outside of work, grabbing coffee, going for walks, and sharing stories about our lives. I don't know where it's headed, but for the first time, I'm open to the possibility of letting someone in. As I reflect on everything that's happened, I realize that the masquerade ball wasn't just a turning point. It was a declaration of independence. It was me saying, I'm here, I matter, and I deserve happiness. And that message has carried me through every decision I've made since. I've learned to set boundaries, to prioritize my well-being, and to surround myself with people who genuinely care about me. It's a journey, and I know there will be bumps along the way, but for the first time, I feel like I'm on the right path. Life after the conflict isn't perfect, it's real. It's filled with moments of doubt, flashes of anger, and occasional pangs of sadness. But it's also filled with joy, laughter, and a newfound sense of purpose. And that, I've realized, is what makes it worth living.